All right, sorry guys, I'm running a little behind this morning. I got a little touch and go there with some of the software this morning. So we're going to be talking about EVs and climate change nonsense and all that good stuff this morning. Buckle up, I'm gonna piss some people off. Let's do this. Good morning, guys. I gotta tell you, before we get started with the stories today, I gotta tell you, it is gorgeous outside. It's exactly t-shirt weather. And when I say gorgeous outside, many of you who watch the show often know that one of the things I do out in the real world is real estate photography. And this morning in particular, there was an outstanding sunrise this morning. And I thought for a moment about going and grabbing a camera, and then I stood there and I said to myself, nope, I'm going to stand here and enjoy my cup of coffee and watch that sunrise. And it was awesome, beautiful. And then what's going on right now with the sky, when I say gorgeous, there is a particular amount of cloud cover, just the right, exact, correct amount of nice fluffy white clouds up there, to such an extent that I'm here to tell you, if you've ever looked at professional real estate, architectural, landscape type photography, the likelihood that you've seen a shot with where it's the actual sky and you're not looking at a specific like destination sunrise or sunset photo, the likelihood that the sky you're seeing in the photograph is the same sky that was there when the picture was taken is actually quite low. Because, especially when you're talking about real estate or architectural photography, because of the color and tonality of the image of the actual property, which is generally dark earth tones, the greens and the browns and whatever color the paint on the house is, you want that pristine blue sky with about 30 to 40% of that pristine blue sky being broken up by a sort of brindled cow type of cloud pattern. So we do blue sky replacement. It doesn't matter if the sky was if the sky was a perfect cloudless gorgeous blue or a shitty rainy garbage day. We replace the sky behind your house to make sure that it is the correct contrasty brindled image to make the property image really pop. The sky today is the sky we take photographs of to put into your real estate photos, and it's outstanding. And I happen to be shooting a half a dozen houses today. It might even save some of my guys a little time in the editing booth. We shall see. So, that said, that out of the way, I want to talk about EVs this morning. I'm glad to see that Uncle Steve's watching, because Uncle Steve's got a Tesla, and he has a very high opinion of the Tesla, and I don't disagree. I want to get this out of the way right up front. I really like the idea of EVs. I like the idea of electric powered cars more in the future. And this is going to be an unpopular opinion as somebody living on the southeast metro side of Atlanta, where there is some controversy over the building of a new Rivian plant. But I've looked at the Rivian pickup trucks, and their pricing model and the truck itself is actually quite attractive. I'm seriously considering getting one next summer, but we'll see what happens. I'm more likely when I do buy a new truck to go with something, with a big crew cab and a whole lot of muscle. But those Rivian trucks look great. They do. So what you're about to hear from me is not a screed against EVs generally, but rather an admonishment and a cautionary tale about the hyper obsession with the idea of taking the whole country full EV. We're not there yet. We're far from it. And at the top of the list of the reasons that the environmentalist nut jobs can't have their total renewable energy cycle, that they can't replace all the gas vehicles with electric vehicles and go completely away from fossil fuels, it's on them. They have, in the name of environmentalism generally, stood in the way of the development of the energy sector for decades. This is not least true within the realm of nuclear power. The Japanese just took nuclear to a whole new level. I didn't open that article. Let me see if I can find it on my Flipboard again real quick. But there's there are some pretty interesting advancements coming down the pipe in the production of more renewable, useful energy sources, but people are afraid of nuclear. Nuclear's just about the only answer that there's going to be, guys. We've seen it. The wind farms, they cost more energy to put up than they produce before they have to be rehabilitated, repaired, or more likely, as the trend shows, they're just given up on it, shut down. Same thing with solar. I had this other article there. So, of course, there's the whole scare. People are afraid of nuclear, and it isn't a reasonable concern. Nuclear is safer than most of the other options. In fact, clean coal mining kills more people per annum than nuclear, but there's always the fear of the next Chernobyl incident. Well, we've got this article from Big Think for Veterans Day, actually. Japan sets new nuclear fission record. A massive nuclear fission experiment just hit a major milestone, potentially putting us a little closer to a future of limitless clean energy. Okay, we don't need to explain that. You guys should, okay, just in case. Nuclear fusion is a process in which two atoms merge into one. This releases an incredible amount of energy in the form of heat, so much heat, in fact, that it can power the sun and other stars. To get hydrogen atoms to fuse, we need to subject them to extreme pressure and temperature above 180 million degrees Fahrenheit, 100 million degrees Celsius, 100 million degrees Celsius, and we have to control the superhot plasma to sustain the reaction. Japan's JT60SA is now the biggest tokamak to reach first plasma anywhere in the world. A massive nuclear fusion experiment in Japan just hit a major milestone, potentially putting us a little closer to a future of limitless clean energy. Okay, hang on a second. It did say fusion. I think I said fission earlier, and there's an important difference between fission and fusion. So, there's the 101. Okay, if we could harness the heat from nuclear fusion here on Earth, we could use it to generate electricity on demand without worrying about carbon emissions, nuclear waste, or running out of fuel. The hydrogen and lithium atoms we'd use to create fuel are plentiful. Now, I'm a little skeptical of the comment here about the lithium atoms, but hydrogen is too easy. Excuse me. There's a little argument going on back and forth in the comments here between Pitt, Danny, and Uncle Steve. Danny says they look good, but the performance is not there. Okay, so Uncle Steve mentioned the Cybertruck, and I'll get to that in just a minute. Danny said they look good, but the performance is not there. And Uncle Steve said, Pit Pony, you haven't ridden in a Tesla, have you? So I think Danny was talking about the Cybertruck in particular, and for the Cybertrucks, when we're talking about, I need some clarification from you, Uncle Steve. When you say Cybertruck, are you talking pickup truck, or we're going to get to in just a second the tractor trailer, the semi-rig EVs, and that's a different story. So, while the scientists have recently managed to generate slightly more energy from fusion than they put into it, it'll likely be decades before they overcome the many hurdles to developing a commercial fusion reactor. And that's one of the problems right there. And this is true in solar and in wind and everywhere else. Okay, so Uncle Steve clarifies the Cybertruck is pickup truck. Yeah, that's the Tesla model, right? I think. But it hits on the problem right here. While scientists have recently managed to generate slightly more energy from fusion than they put into it, it'll likely be decades before they overcome the many hurdles to developing a commercial fusion reactor. But that's also the problem with all of the alternative energy sources. The reason that gas is king, that oil is king, is because you get so much energy out of the fossil fuels. You get so much more out of the fossil fuels than you can get out of any other renewable energy source except for nuclear. Excuse me. Now, and that's a big part of the problem. It costs so much to put up high-powered wind turbines, and it costs so much to put up solar power that by the time you get out what you've put into it, the systems have broken down and require expensive maintenance, so they don't last. So, for example, from CNET here's how many solar panels you'll need to charge your EV. In order to make your EV green energy approved, you'll need to charge it using a renewable energy source. Solar panels are one way to accomplish that. For the eco-conscious EV driver, an electric vehicle is only as clean and green as the source of electricity charging its battery. I'm sure you've all seen the memes of the diesel generator charging the EV on the side of the road. And guys, as funny as that meme is, let me remind you, it's funny because it's true. So that's because EVs plugged into the grid can either be powered by dirty sources such as fossil fuels, such as coal, or from clean renewable energy that comes from sources such as solar, hydro, or wind power. Okay, electricity, much like money, with respect to the sources, is fungible. So unless what you're doing is setting up your own private solar farm or wind farm at home and charging exclusively from that, then you are getting some of your charge. If you're stopping at the charging station in front of Target or whatever nearby gas station or wherever and paying to charge your EV, paying your equivalent $17 a gallon to charge your EV, then you are using gas to power your car. That's a fact. Now, if you've got your own completely off the grid alternative fuel source energy distribution system built at home, that's a different matter. But in this example, with spiking energy and gas and with spiking gas and electric prices and an intensifying climate crisis, that's false. That is simply false. The idea that there is a climate crisis and that it's getting substantially worse is utterly refuted by the facts. Rooftop solar panel installations are breaking records, and U.S. EV adoption is expected to accelerate, predicted to reach 40% of passenger car sales by 2030. I doubt that. Let me rephrase. I doubt that number can be achieved organically. People are not simply going to adopt EVs at a rate of 40%. 40% of passenger car sales by 2030? You're telling me that over the next 6 years, because 2023 is just about over the next 6 years, more people are going to choose to spend $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 or more on a new car instead of buying a gas car that they can get for $20,000 or $30,000 or less. Against a national median income of below $100,000 per annum, I just don't see that happening. Uncle Steve says, yeah, I had horses pulling Model Ts at one time, but we got past it. We did, and we got past it. That's a great point. We got past it because gas is cheap energy, and it always has been. Oil, diesel, gasoline, it was cheaper. It's cheap, efficient energy. And as a comparison, when you talk about the switch from having horses pulling buggies to having internal combustion engines, the internal combustion engine is much cheaper to keep and maintain than our livestock, right? I've been running the same F-150 for 23 years. You can't do that with a horse and buggy. You'd have to replace the horse, at least every 5 or 6 years. Now, there is another side of that, and we've talked this with respect to large screen televisions, right? Right now, the EVs are a luxury item. They're expensive. They're prohibitively expensive for the average citizen, but rich people are buying them up. Now, that is going to have an effect. That's going to have a marked effect on the economics of the proposition. When the great big old flat screen TVs first rolled out on the market, they were $5,000-$10,000 for a 50-inch flat screen television. You can go and get a 50 or 60-foot. Right here in front of me, this is a 65-inch flat screen monitor that I'm using for this machine. This is a 55-inch as my secondary monitor on the left, and those are pretty big screens. They were both less than $400. I think I paid $375 for the 65-inch about a month ago, and the 55-inch over here I bought 6 or 7 years ago for about $350 or $400. Xander Mack points out manufacturers are scaling back on EV. They admitted 2 weeks ago the experiment is failing. It is, but it won't. there will be, I think, a point in the future, assuming that the environmentalists' resistance to production of actual clean alternative energies is defeated. There will be a point at which the rich guy buying the expensive toys turns into the expensive toys being made cheaper and en masse. But today, we just don't have the technology to support going full EV. And that's going to remain true as long as we have, basically as long as we have environmentalists arguing that we need to shut down oil production. You're the Stop Oil Now guys. Xandermax says it'll be fuel cells, not battery. Battery is a stopgap. I don't disagree that. How do I formulate this correctly? Basically, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Alex, generally, but there are some new battery technologies that are almost hybridized fuel cell battery technologies. They're not lithium ion or lithium polymer or nickel cadmium type of stuff that we're used to. That are very promising and very interesting. But yes, Pit Danny's correct. We need a leap in technology, and many of those leaps are happening, and many of those leaps are being resisted by the same people that want us to go full EV. There's a great, I can't believe I'm saying these words, a great TikTok. This is being.
Do you ever see yourself going 100% EV?
No.
And why not?
I mean, maybe. If battery technology gets better, grid infrastructure gets better. But like this truck, like a Logan truck uses about 2.5 megawatts of power per day. With extra capacity in the battery means you need a 3 megawatt battery pack. The biggest one is like a Tesla Semi, which is like a 1 megawatt. So you need 3 megawatts to run an electric truck. That would mean you would need to pack 50,000 pounds, 50,000 pounds of batteries just to do a full day. And then let's say we can even get those batteries down to the same weight where it's reasonable. The grid infrastructure, we haven't invested in our electrical grid since the 1950s, 1960s, 70s. Like, to give you an example, logging trucks in BC, that's a niche industry. There's 5,000 logging trucks that haul logs at 2.5 megawatts of consumption per day. That's 12.5 gigawatts of power. Site C Dam has been under construction for the last, 15 years at a cost of $20 billion, and that has a 1.1 gigawatt. So a $20 billion dam that takes 15 years to build has a 1.1 gigawatt capacity, and logging trucks, just logging trucks alone, are using 12.5 gigawatts. You would have to flood an area of land the size of Wales to produce that hydropower. Well, we need a lot to make a fully electric feasible on the North American grid with batteries and all that. But if you can make it more efficient and you can...
Now, everything he's saying is correct and true. And you're right. Pit Danny, just like Pit Danny said, massive leap in technology. We're not there for total replacement yet, but that doesn't mean that, like I said at the beginning, I like the idea of EVs. But we're seeing politicians push legislation to force people to buy EVs. And think back just about 2 years when the Bidenomics really took a hold, and we started seeing $4.5, $5 gas again, as we had not seen since Obama. And you've got celebrities like Colbert saying, "Oh, I'll gladly pay a little more for gas because I own a Tesla." And you plebs should just go and spend your entire annual salary or double your annual salary on a car because it's more convenient for me. Legion says the future is analog. That is a salient observation. There are some real concerns about the way that technology develops into the future as far as that goes. Anybody who owns a later model car, like, okay, I've got an 01 F-150 that's my daily driver, and I've got a 2010 Caravan, minivan, because we got a shitload of kids. And I mean, even, my 01 F-150, there's some computers in there. There's some sensor stuff in there that's problematic from time to time, but it's all pretty simple, right? There's nothing in that truck that I can't work on myself, that I can't just break the truck open, fix it myself. Now, I don't. I pay somebody to do that work for me because I'm tired and my back hurts. But that van that's just about 10 years newer, it's 13 years old now, but it's 10 years newer than the pickup truck. And it's a fully loaded piece of equipment. It's got all the bells and whistles, the heated seats, and the double flip-down monitors for the DVD players so the kids can be shut up when we're on a long drive and all that good stuff. And, here we are 13 years into that van, and the cruise control has failed. The cruise control doesn't work anymore. The flip-down monitors don't work correctly anymore. We never use them anymore. All the little electronic bells and whistles are starting to break down, and they're all the kind of thing where I've watched some how-tos on it, and it all looks like stuff that I could repair myself if I had to. But even to do the repair is time-consuming, aggravating, and expensive. I kind of miss my old conversion van. You pop the hood open and you replace the parts and you move on down the road. So, Xander says, quite frankly, the oil companies will make sure hydrogen is the future because they will still control the infrastructure. I don't disagree with that either. And I don't think, you said it right before that. Whereas hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, which is why hydrogen fuel cells will be the future. Alex, if you haven't read it already, I highly recommend you grab a copy of The Hydrogen Economy by Jeremy Rifkin. It's a little bit older book, but it speculates a lot on the future of a hydrogen economy, and boy does it paint a rosy picture. And if I'm being honest, it's not an unreasonably rosy picture. It's not an unhealthy optimism. So I would absolutely be down for all the hydrogen future stuff. And frankly, I'm a little flummoxed as to why hydrogen hasn't been further explored. You'd think that'd be, top headlines constantly, but it, quite simply, you look at the people you look at the climate alarmists and the environmental activists, you don't see intelligent people there. You just don't. So, I think that's the show this morning, guys. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it right there. Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.